The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on October 15th, 2024.
It's time now for Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And now, here's your host, the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pam Toonpop. Good morning, Pam. How are you doing today, Pam?
Good morning. I am great, Gary. How are you this morning?
Very good. It's nice muggy day again today.
Well, it is a noisy day here. I am in Waikiki.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a little gray here. It was raining last night, but looks like it's hopefully going to show up and be a great day this morning.
Well, it's Hawaii. How bad can it be?
That's right. We're very blessed always.
Right.
So true. So great to be on with you this morning, and great to talk to a councilwoman and a new county council candidate. It's going to be an awesome morning.
Can't wait.
Me too. Thank you so much. Well, let's kick it off. Actually, this morning we are so blessed to have County Council member Tasha, who has been such a strong advocate, not only on the County Council, but a strong advocate in our community for many, many years. She has done so many things in so many different volunteer arenas for decades, and has all doing so while raising an amazing family and just very involved in our community. And so we are so thrilled that she is running again for the county council. She has been somebody who has been a champion for housing for a very, very long time, and something we have worked together on while she has been in office, struggling to just make sure that we have housing for all of our people in Maui County. And it is just such a great blessing this morning to have her on the show. So I would like to say good morning and welcome, Tasha. Thank you so much for joining us. Because it is election season, I do need to let everybody know that this is a sponsored ad by the Maui Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber of Maui Political Action Committee, valued at $175 that we are paying to have you on the show, but are thrilled that you could join us this morning. How are you?
I am thrilled, totally thrilled that you are doing this for me. I feel so blessed, that there are so many people that are out there wanting to support me in the different venues, and I so do appreciate it. And I'm doing really, really well. I have confidence, and I'm confident that all will work well for me in this upcoming election again. And so thank you very much, Pam, for your friendship. Thank you very much for your sage advice over the years. Thank you so much for just being there for the chambers. I am so proud of what you have done, and I want to work with you continuously so that we can bring what we're looking for, I think, at least for me, this next year, is how do we diversify our economy? And we want to talk about that today, if we have time.
Well, we definitely going to have time. And I'm, you have been such a huge champion for housing. And
yes.
It is something that I want to start there only for one reason. And then I would love to jump in because this is so critical for our economic health and recovery. We can't have economic health and recovery without housing. Our people are hurting. We're losing people because they can't afford to stay.
We can't house them.
Our youth can't afford to come back. And as we look to diversify our economy, and as we look to have new industries and sustain our workers here and keep them here, we've got to have housing. You've been such a strong champion. Let's touch on for just a minute how critical housing is and what you feel some of the options are.
Housing was critical before the fire.
Yeah.
And when the fires occurred, it just exacerbated the issue because people who used to have a home no longer had homes. Homeowners lost their homes, and renters lost their apartment dwellings or the places where they were living. We're at such a huge crisis. So, my sense over the years has always been, I want to build housing, increase the housing inventory, do infill projects, whatever we can. And sometimes that even means, how do we increase density in our island when we know we need at least 14,000 units? At least that's what it was when I ran in 2018. That was the number they said that we were short. So if we were short 14,000 then, how much more short are we now with our families that have been homeless or houseless since this fire? So we have to rethink about how we do density. Right now, in our county, most of our housing apartment buildings are no more than 4 stories high. If we really intend to do housing the way we want to, so that we can accommodate all of our people across all the AMIs, then we really need to increase the floors. Going up 4 stories is not enough. We might have to go up 6 stories. And we have to rethink that, although there is an ordinance that says we can only go 4 stories high or 90 feet. But I think we have to rethink the density and what that's going to look like. So to me, it's critical in how we address not just how we're going to get these units to go vertical, but also what are the barriers. So we hear that a lot of the barriers have to do with the permitting process, and all the processes that these contractors, developers, or even a homeowner has to go through in order to get their permit to put a bathroom in, put a bedroom in, or even to put an entire subdivision. So as a council member, my job is to take a look at the broad scope of things and figure out how do we make this happen for everybody. And that's my whole sense when I look at housing on a more global scale in terms of who needs it, where do we need to put it, and does it fit within the community's, either their community plan or the Maui Island plan, and does it fit there? And those are some of the things I look at in terms of when we do housing here.
Well, I really appreciate your thoughts on that. I absolutely agree. It's something we've talked about for years. And of course, home ownership is always the goal, but we're going to have to look at, even in home ownership, even if we look to rebuild Lahaina, particularly in those areas, the old plantation camp, where we have to widen roadways and address critical issues there. Going up is going to be key. So I think that is going to be such an important thing to visit, and you have been on the forefront forever in this arena. So, I have cherished your ideas, and I have cherished the hard work you have put in on this critical issue, and housing for local residents, but also in housing for those who have been on the streets as well. And we had housing solutions before the wildfires hit. We were ready to start really looking at some amazing modular projects that didn't look like modular projects when they were built. They look like beautiful homes. And so, I really thank you for the years of work that you've put in. And I agree. I think you're going to do very well as we move forward with this election season. And, and again, understanding that connection with how we have the opportunity to diversify our economy, but recognizing they're tied together. It's really imperative that we have both to achieve what we want to now do, not only in economic development and diversification that we've talked about for decades, but really in our recovery efforts to move us forward. We've got to take care of our families first. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on how you'd like to see us plan for our economic recovery and then long-term diversification to sustain our island and not be so reliant on the visitor industry?
Okay. So let's take the first, our recovery efforts. I'm really concerned about, our homeowners that live in the plantation camps. When they bought their homes, maybe in the 60s or the 70s, right? The homes, I think back then were probably $60, $70, $80,000, maybe not that high. But now to have to rebuild that same home on that same platform, it's not going to cost that much money. It's going to cost even more so. So my concern is if they had insurance and insurance can support them, I think that's a great idea. But if they didn't, then they're going to need some help from the county to put a new home on that piece of property. And then, like we talked about earlier, right, that because of the new codes and the ordinances that have come into existence since Lahaina Town has been built, we have to figure out: are we going to make them have to build to code because that's the only way that we can do it, or can we make exemptions for some of our families? And that's what I'm looking at, because it is too expensive for our families, especially when you look at them. Most of our homeowners were retirees, and they were living on fixed income, and they had worked their whole lives, and they're just enjoying their lives, right? But now with this fire, it's like they got to start all over again. And it's like, oh my God, who wants to start all over again when you're in your 60s, right? But I want to be able to support all of our homeowners. And for our tenants who live in apartment buildings, and I want to be able to support whoever or whatever we can do to put them back into housing. So I'm not sure where some of the apartment owners are in terms of, rebuilding. I have no idea where their thoughts are, but I want to be able to support them, because anybody that is willing to put up a unit or an apartment building or something to be able to house our people, I will support that, because we need all the help from everybody. Even if it means somebody wants to rent a room in their home, I can support that too. And I think anything that will house our people. So right now, we're looking at our temporary housing, that FEMA's bringing all those modular homes from the harbor, and they're taking them up to, I think, on HHFCC property in Lahaina. Well, that's 450 temporary homes, right? So when those homes are done, then they have to be removed, right? So my sense is, and this is something I've been working with my staff too, is that are there temporary structures that have the infrastructure that you could actually keep it there permanently? Because, if we start building like 5,000 units that are temporary, what happens after the 5 years is over, or however long it might take? And we're just going to, throw these away, throw in the trash? So what are we going to do? But if we can allow some of these, if it makes sense, to stay put, then we should allow that to happen. And I just visited a 4-unit transition home in Pukalani, and this church had put 4 units, beautiful 2-bedroom units, and it comes with wraparound services, and they did that with the emergency proclamation that the governor had. But they're beautiful units, and I looked at it, I said, oh my gosh, it's on the church's property. They have their infrastructure in, they're connected to sewer and water. Why do we have to move these after 5 years? Could not they be rented out to other people? So we can increase our inventory like that too. As people go back into their homes, then we have more units available for other people to rent. So that's my whole sense about that particular issue in terms of how do we expand housing and things like that. That's for the recovery efforts.
And many churches are doing that.
Yes.
We are seeing it. They have church land, and they are making it available. And it's a great start, and it also gives us units across the island as well. Yes. Of course, our focus is taking care of those who have lost their homes in Lahaina and West Maui. But it's going to, as you said, it's been a crisis. It's needed everywhere. And so as we look at, and again, when we're talking about these units, I just want to, and I know it's a word that we've used forever, and everybody says, well, what's affordable, which we completely understand. But what we are talking about is units that, because we've also seen a price escalation in rent.
Yes, we have.
Price escalation in our housing market. So we are talking about units that people can afford with the wages that they are making.
Yeah.
Now that is what we're talking about in terms of affordable and continuing to look at that. So, again, as we are struggling, and you have your entire career championed housing and housing for those who desperately need it and who have struggled with this issue of affordability and looking at the area median incomes known as AMI that people always hear us talk about, which really means, can somebody on their basic salary afford a house, and where do they fall on the spectrum of what the housing price is and what they make is basically what we're talking about. But as we look to diversify our economy, where do you see industries that will help us get there, that will provide economic development opportunities where people can get to, it's hard to fill a gap between what they call a minimum wage and living wage when our living wage is still inflated primarily by housing. But how do we close that gap? What industries would you like to see us develop?
I would like to see us develop the film industry. Mean, we have such beautiful scenery. I tell you, I remember when I was a kid and I used to watch movies about Hawaii, and we were living on the mainland at the time. But I tell you, when they show the blue skies and balmy trees, and they show the ocean and the beaches, it just makes you want to go there, right? So
yes,
we have scenery, and we have people. We have people in the film industry who live here and who live on the mainland, and who would be able, if we could make it happen. Like I just talked when the new film commissioner came in, Brian Cohen, I had a discussion with him about how do we make this industry a viable industry, right? That you just don't do films, but we get our people to be actors and producers and writers and develop shows on island and stuff like that. So that's some of the stuff he talked about with his deputy director, Kathy Collins. So I'm thinking that we need to support this industry in the same way we supported the tourist industry. From way back in the 40s and the 50s, we really did put a lot of money into the tourist industry, and rightfully so, right? Because that was supposed to be our golden goose, I guess. And I guess over time, this golden goose was not so golden as we thought it was. But I think, but putting money into something like the film industry is going to take time. It's going to take money, but it's also going to have to take some really thought-provoking issues so that what happened in the tourist industry doesn't happen with the film industry. That we welcome people, we want them to use our facilities, and of course they're going to pay for all of this, but teach them too how to respect our land, how to respect our oceans, our environment, so that it becomes not just I'm here to commodify or take advantage of what you all have, but to really get into there, bring a product that they think is good and we think is good, and at the same time help allow that to become one of our economic engines. And we need more than one economic engine. I just heard that FEMA wants to hire some people. I think a couple of hundred people they're looking for. I'm thinking, do we even have that many people on island that would want to work for them? Because that is pretty good money if you're going to work for FEMA. But, and that's one. But, we have a labor shortage here. And I'm not sure how well developed our labor shortage is going to help in terms of we need people in all the industries, right? In the tech industry, in the health industry, in the just the labor. I mean, the county itself, we need workers, right? But there's so much that needs to get done, but I'm not even sure where our labor force is anymore. I know people are leaving, and the people who are coming are not necessarily coming here to work, right?
Right.
So we have to figure out what do we need to do to keep our people here, incentivize their workplace. And one of the things when I think about affordable housing, we've been building, right? Building, and telling people, you gotta fit into this apartment, into this house, as opposed to figuring out how much money do they have and how much house can they build, right? So we haven't been building to the income of our people. We've been building, right, pretty much so that the developer can make a profit and he can pay everybody off, but then ultimately it will fall on the new homeowner or the tenant in the apartment building. But we have to figure out how to build to income, because that's the problem. Is we talk about trying to raise the minimum wage. Small business owners cannot raise their wages to the people that they're paying. They're paying the best that they can because they're a business, right? And they have to survive too, and they have overhead to contend with. But I think we have to figure out how to build to the income of our people who are needing homes. And know this, that some people will never ever be a homeowner only because their incomes will probably never get to that place. But many people will be able to get to that place, and we should build for them, and for those that cannot, just continue to use rentals.
I think that was extraordinarily well said, and really important. And again, you and I know, and we've seen, and a lot of models have been presented, that some of them like that we're really not moving forward with yet in our county, because being able to build to the income that you can afford does not mean you're going to be in some sort of metal box container home.
Absolutely.
There are so many amazing models, and you can have a beautiful home.
Yes.
The dynamics have changed. You and I have toured them.
Yeah.
We know that the dynamics have changed, and it's a time when we're going to have to really start looking at some of those things.
Yeah.
And I think people will be pleasantly surprised. I really do.
Which you can really buy for your money.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to really have to start targeting and looking at, which I so appreciate. Yep. And I know, you're on the forefront of that. I also want to say that, we at the Maui Chamber of Commerce, as well as our state, has championed film. And I was just meeting with Georgia Skinner, who's a Maui gal, but living in Honolulu, working on the film industry, as she has for decades, championing this industry. And it is a great diversity. It's a great opportunity for broad diversification, because it spurs many different industries, including the creative arts, which here in Hawaii, we have so many talented people on all levels that could benefit from that industry. And I love that you said, as we look at this, we did what we were supposed to do with the visitor industry. We diversified and leveraged that industry to support our agricultural industry. Restaurant would support the ag, retail, activities, events, weddings. I mean, we've built so many industries around that. And film is another good example of how you can target an industry, but there are so many ancillary arenas in digital media and curriculum development and things that tie into our visitor industry that also will showcase so many things about Hawaii and in the ways that we want to showcase Hawaii. And and it gives us, again, that engine that can be diversified in very meaningful ways, which is very exciting. And I think we're doing a local musicians grant and working with musicians who lost some of their income as a result of the wildfires and economic downturn. And the creativity of the talent we have is phenomenal. And youth are excited about that industry. And it gives us those wages that can help us get into housing. Yeah, it's one of the things that you've as you've been looking at all of this, and I know that we're we're having to look at these new ways. But if you can give us a sense as we move into our future and as we look at Lahaina, I just would like to have you share for a moment a quick vision that you see for bringing our community back as we move forward, getting us to more prosperity in terms of our lives, being able to afford the housing that we have and provide a place to house our family in a way that we can bring our children up and bring our children back to Hawaii. Just some quick thoughts on what you see for Lahaina in the future too, that shares that dream and how we can come together as a community to look at making Lahaina whole again.
Okay, so my thoughts on making Lahaina whole again and what my vision would be for them. I see a thriving, lush Lahaina. At one time, Lahaina used to be all green because of the taro patches and because it was all agriculture, right? So it was thriving, and it was just full of life and full of activities, and it was just a thriving community out there. So, moving forward, the people of Lahaina today are so culturally astute that they acknowledge the fact that moku'ula and mokuhinia are things that are important to them, right? And therefore, they want to restore that. And when you restore things like that back into a community with that kind of historical background, people will be healed because that's what brings healing. When you go back to your roots, when you go back to who you are, not who somebody wanted you to be or who you grew up, but who you really are, and you search yourself. That's what happens when you develop and you go back and you recreate what was gone. And Moku'ula and Mokuhinia was at one time the capital of the kingdom. It has great symbolic meaning to the people of Hawaii as well as to the people of Lahaina. And the fact that they are there to be able to nurture that back, that in itself will bring healing. Because that means the community will be working together, trying to figure out how to do this, how to do that. And when everybody starts to work in tandem, healing begins, cooperation begins, and aloha begins to thrive once again. So that is my vision when I see the people of Lahaina as they start to come back together. And then I see all of Maui County surrounding them and supporting them and lifting them all up. And in lifting them up, we lift each other up. Those are my thoughts.
That is beautifully said. Very beautifully said. Well, Tasha, I'm sorry. One, I want to apologize. We started late today.
Oh, no.
That is on me. But I just want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank you with all the things that you have going on in your life for running again to serve our community. And you have been a great champion for us, and you have the full support of the Maui Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber of Maui Political Action Committee. We thank you, and we hope to see you return in the seat that you have served us so well.
Thank you, Pam. I appreciate those words. Kind words.
Thank you.
Encouraging
well
words.
And true.
Words are going to take me to November 5th.
We want to encourage everybody, please vote for Tasha Kama. She has served us all very well, and we look forward to continuing the work that we've begun. Thank you, Tasha, and have a wonderful Maui day. Aloha. As Gary brings on our next guest, I want to introduce John Pele, who is a candidate for Maui County Council from Molokai. And I do want to, again, just let everybody know that, again, we are in the election season. So this is a time when we do need to announce that for the candidates who are on this morning, This is a message, an in-kind contribution toward their campaign valued at $175 paid for by the Chamber of Maui Political Action Committee, which is a committee that we do to identify amazing candidates. And John Pele is one of them. He was born in California. He's a graduate of the class of 1984 from Molokai High School. He attended the University of Hawaii at Manoa from 1984 to 1986. He started his career at the Sheraton Molokai, serving in a number of positions. And then in 1994, he joined Molokai Ranch in various capacities over the course of his 15-year tenure, where he served as general manager of the Mauna Loa Lodge hotel operations until Molokai Ranch's closure in 2008. And he then started managing the Molokai Ranch condominiums for the next 14 years. John has also, after the closure of Molokai Ranch, took on the role of resident manager at Paniolo Holly condominiums on Molokai's west side, where he was employed for 14 years. Then in 2023, he accepted a consultant position on Maui. He commutes weekly, and he is still in that position, which offered him the opportunity to be more involved in government affairs, community engagement, and strategic planning. So he is also a part owner of Heroes Ohana Grill with his brothers Cameron and Raymond. So he has small business experience, large business experience, and has been a very strong advocate and planning commissioner on Molokai from 2017 to 2023. So, and he continues to live on Molokai with his wife, Nani. So it's great to have John on this morning. Aloha and good morning, John.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you, Bama, for having me.
We are so thrilled that you are running for office. You've been such a strong champion on Molokai and a great leader there, not only in your career, but in the work you've continued to do. And we really enjoyed talking to you as we did our candidate endorsement process about housing, something critical to us all. Can you share a little bit with us this morning about your view on how we get housing for our local residents, address our crisis, and be able to bring our children home and diversify our economy?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I am an advocate for housing, and I do believe that actually all the problems the diversity problems that we see happening, everything is tied back to the affordability of housing, if you ask me. I'd like to see some zoning reform happen in our county. I think our zoning laws are kind of old and outdated, and I'd like to see the government lead some infrastructure projects when we talk about housing development to bring down the cost. And of course, we all know about the permitting process and how long it takes. I think the average this year that they put out was over 300 days for a single-family home, and we're talking about multi-family dwellings was over 400 days. So there's definitely some things that we can improve upon to get some housing expedited, and to see if we can get some affordability for our residents. You know, we need to find out a way to insulate our residents in the housing and the cost, because we're an international market. And it's very hard for our local market to compete with the kind of money that is out there internationally. So we got to figure out a way how we insulate our residents so they can stay in affordability and then continue with the economic success here.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. You know, we were talking with Tasha earlier this morning, and you know, I know that you've been looking at this as well, is given how critical housing is to our economic recovery and further development and future, what are some of the industries you'd like to see as we diversify our economy in new ways to help bring up, you know, the wages and create an environment where, you know, we've got careers that our kids can come back to Hawaii and return home for, but also be able to afford a home? What are some of your ideas for our diversification efforts?
Yeah, it's important, and I still, you introduced my background, and I still believe that the hotel industry and the tourism industry, we need to figure out ways to continue to support them. We all know
Yeah.
the downtrend that's happening now, and those are affecting jobs of our local residents, the people who live and work here and need those jobs. So I think a continued partnership on how to uh, create solution-oriented community plans, so the tourism industry can be a partner with the community, but also, I'd like to see, clean energy has come. AES just opened, blessed their solar farm here. So maybe there's a way we can get some more clean energy projects
Hmm.
online here in Maui County to work towards the state goal and the Maui County's goal to have clean energy. And with that, we're having a lot of workforce problems throughout. The trades, our business
Yeah.
trades, our construction trades, our professional trades, all need people. Only people and nurses, teachers, we see the shortages. And again, if we can build up those industries, and that's all tied back to housing. The reason why we don't have those positions available is people can't afford to live here when it comes to housing. So I think, again, I'm sorry, you're going to hear me talk about that solution, but I believe everything is tied to housing and when we talk about diversification.
Well, I wholeheartedly agree, and it's my mantra as well. And I'm
Yeah,
glad
and
that you
excuse me
also
if I sound like a
mentioned.
broken record, but it really is important. And when you go out and you talk to the community, I've been walking, I've been knocking on doors, and that is still the number one concern of people. Is how can we afford housing so I can stay here? It's not how can I get a job. A lot of people have jobs. It's just how can they, and you can't just we can't expect to keep throwing money, raising the minimum wage, because it will put small businesses out of this. I mean, I own a restaurant, and as you stated, it will struggle. It'll definitely be a struggle, and how do we figure that out? I think it's affordable housing.
Well, and you mentioned energy, and part of that struggle, and we always try to educate people on the difference between a minimum wage and a living wage, which is the living wage
Right.
of what it costs to live here. Energy is a key part of that, and having more of our own local energy, clean energy, leveraging our resources to create energy is another way to bring costs down for local families. That
Absolutely.
is one of their higher costs that they have to pay in addition to housing. So that's great. And I also love that you mentioned, you know, the visitor industry is still a very viable and important industry. We're looking to diversify to give us other options beyond that so that when there's a downturn, we're not relied on a single industry, but also looking to better manage. And that work has been ongoing. And so I appreciate that you say it's not a replacement. It's how do we expand opportunity so that we
Exactly.
have more lakes to stand on. Yeah. So one of the other things, John, of course, you've been here and you're walking around talking to people and I'm just hearing so many great stories of how much people really enjoy getting to know you, which is awesome. You know, we're as we're looking to do this and also rebuild Lahaina. What are some of the key things that you want to see and you feel that our community really needs as we look to rebuild that area and restore that area in Lahaina? What are some of your thoughts on that effort?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that when rebuilding Lahaina has to come from the community of Lahaina. They have to lead the charge as far as getting together and figuring out how they envision their community looking. And we should be there to support decisions on planning. Um, I heard people talk about Moku'ula, and on a personal note, I think that would just be a beautiful place to reestablish and thrive and have that bring back that identity of Lahaina as it was, and then build everything off of that identity, right? And that's just a personal vision, right? I would never place that upon the community. I hope that we understand that the community has to come together and figure out how they want Lahaina to look moving forward. I mean, I would love to see the historic district get some exemptions so they can start to rebuilding, because I think that's an important part of Lahaina. But I think really supporting the community and their vision is the biggest thing we can do as county officials, and then try to see what we can do as far as in the planning stage and legislation to make that come to fruition.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful vision. As we're as we're addressing these things, other, hiccups have come up along the way with the wildfires as people were placed in condominiums short term as a way where families could unite and at least cook together. And it was a short term gap while we were looking at temporary housing. But it's created another issue which has come up, and I know you've been watching this issue, which is on short-term rentals and the mayor's proposal to phase out short-term rentals in apartment zone properties, and to take those units back in a way that we can make them available to local residents. Can you share some of your thoughts on that proposal and what you see as a possible solution to this?
Yeah, I think, when that was announced, we all knew that was going to be a very hot topic, especially as we're campaigning, and people want to know, and they deserve to know. I think that the study that the county is going to do is going to be vital. There's a lot to process in this whole legislation, and I agree that we need housing. I might disagree on the unilateral application all at once. I think maybe we could have worked with the property owners to see if there was a solution oriented on, you hear numbers like, oh, maybe we need 500 or 600 units. So is there a way to get there by including these property owners and making them part of the process to find out if there's 500 or 600 units? And, when this kind of legislation comes down, and obviously we're going to hear about it as candidates, I ask questions, right? So I ask questions of the short-term rental owners. I've met some of them when I've been walking and knocking, and I want to know what they feel. And unfortunately, most of them feel that if the legislation goes through, they're gonna seek legal action, which was expected when the legislation was written. And I just think that might delay the process, and which is not going to solve the problem as it was intended to get people housed quickly. And then I had the opportunity to talk to the Realtors Association of Maui. And I asked them straight out how many units are available on the mandatory list, and they said there's 160. And I asked them how many people are seeking to purchase them, or some of our local residents, and they were unable to give me an example of anybody who wanted to go ahead and purchase right now. And it could be from interest rates, and we don't know how that's going to look. Maybe it's not the right fit, but those kind of things. And, even attorney friends, nothing legal. This is not I didn't seek any kind of judgment. I just wanted to know. And they thought that the amortization period wasn't quite enough to be defensible for the county. They would like to see like a 5-year plan from the county, which would give the county a little bit more defense on some of these lawsuits, and it would give the homeowners a chance to plan what they're going to do, right? These condo owners, they can plan on how they're going to relieve their assets and how they're going to comply with this law. So I think that was important. That's important to realize. And, just we'll see how this comes out, but I'm hoping that it doesn't result. The worst case scenario for me is these owners might just say, I'm not going to rent long term. I'm going to hold it as a second property, which will not achieve housing. And there are people that are in the industry that work. I have a niece that works on Molokai in one of the mandatory properties, and she's concerned that she will lose her job, and she probably will. And she's concerned about her livelihood. So, it's a real sensitive issue. So we're just going to have to wait and see on how this legislation goes out. But I think the study that the council is doing is going to be vital for us to move forward with some information.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm thrilled that the council has that study to help us look at doing that. Given tourism and how we've diversified throughout tourism and how it's benefited many different industries, are there other industries that you see can either benefit from tourism or just are good likely adopters for us that might help? In addition to, as you point out, we also have to build the trades up, and that's going to be critically important.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to come up with industries. We've all talked about, all the candidates have talked about the film industry, which was actually on a really good uprise in 2021. You saw the industry really booming. The latest report that we had a few weeks ago, it's kind of falling down too, and they're hoping to get that back. But the film industry I've had a chance to work in there for a little while, and it was pretty exciting, and it had a lot of opportunity. But I really want to encourage. We need businesses to come to us, and industry to come to us to see how we can support them. And it's very difficult. This is a very difficult business climate to be in Hawaii. And I've heard some of the industries say, it's just too expensive to be in Hawaii. It's not affordable, and it doesn't make sense for us to be there. But any industries that can come to us that make sense, and we can make sure the community is comfortable with them, I think we should be backing them up. But yeah, I've heard people talk about the film industry, and I would be all for the film industry coming back and promoting that. It is on a downturn, and we need to see how we can represent them in a way to bring them and make it easier for them to do business. That's the key, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I you bring up a really important point, which in the 18 years I've been with the Chamber, every year we talk about where Hawaii, and this is a state issue, so for those listening, it's not a county council issue, but it is something that the county council can help with, which is that we are one of the worst states in the nation to do business in, and part of it's because we're an island state and our costs are higher. But unfortunately, when they do the ranking, it's really about the regulations that we put on businesses, particularly small businesses and our general excise tax and other things. It's the way we've structured things that makes it so difficult for people to do business in Hawaii. So that's something, again, we'll be tackling this legislative session in January because we're seeing the hardship and we're seeing the loss of companies. And again, it's a continuing struggle. John, what is your, I wanted to say that you have the full support of the Maui Chamber of Commerce and our Chamber of Maui Political Action Committee. We were thrilled to endorse you, appreciate your ideas and your willingness to serve. What are the top priorities for you? If elected November, and we hope you will be elected this November, what are your top priorities that you'd like to see as a new council member?
My top priorities, again, to be repetitive, are going to really focus on figuring out our housing issue here throughout the county, not just Maui, throughout the county. How can we better improve our residents' life by creating housing? And it's a huge, we hear about pre-fires, we were in the hole already for housing. Post-fires, it's even more devastating. You hear every week about people ready to leave. You hear the word poverty coming out when we're talking about people's situation right now. And I believe that stable housing will be my main laser focus. Bringing up small businesses, when we talked about diversification, I think small businesses are a way that we can really keep it solid and keep it local. But again, it's tough. Yeah. I'm a small business owner. It's really tough to do business in Hawaii. How can we improve that? Like the Office of Economic Development, how can we make sure that they're funded to keep our small businesses going? But to be truthful, it's all going to be focused. We need to focus on our housing. There's a lot of other problems.
1 minute, Pam.
In the county, but the top priority to me is housing. How do we keep our residents housed and at a level that they can afford?
Awesome. John, thank you so much. We are looking forward to seeing you win the election, and you have our full support. I encourage everybody to vote for you. Thank you for joining us today. And to all who are on and listening into Business Matters, we hope you've enjoyed our conversation. I apologize, I'm in Oahu today, and we got started a little bit late, but so great to have Councilmember Tasha on and John Pele, who are running for office. Vote for them this election, and we wish you blessings and aloha for a wonderful week, and hope you'll join us again next Tuesday. Ahui ho.